What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you, and a band that has been gaining a lot of hype here lately, and I picked up their first album. I enjoyed it. I was really curious about this one. So we are going over the latest offering from Castle Rat, the Bestiary. This also comes out on the 19th of September on King Volume Records. This band formed in 2019 in New York City / Middle Earth / wherever Dr. Frankenfurter is from. This is their second album overall. Again, I got into them with their debut album, Into the Realm. I covered that in a collection update. And yeah, I've been kind of like fascinated with this band ever since I saw, I think it was the video for Cry For Me. I was like, what is this? Are they actually LARPing? Well, doing like old school doom, stoner doom metal? I was fascinated, and it wasn't just because their frontwoman Riley Pinkerton's very attractive.
I actually got this band confused with Cloud Rat. I thought I was getting into one thing and got something very different, although a sound that I am grossly familiar with.
Yeah, like reading up on this band, I mean, they kind of seem like they emerged out of nowhere. I heard stories about their live shows and how they incorporate like live action role play in their, live sets with like fake sword battles and blood, and all of it sounded like ridiculous fun to me. And from what I gather, this is the brainchild of Riley Pinkerton. She's actually more like of an indie-like rocker, I guess, outside of this, though I believe her attentions are definitely focused on this band because it seems like there's been a rise in popularity. But I believe like she's even opened for like Cyndi Lauper in the past. But after Into the Realm, I was really curious about this one because that one I liked. I thought it was a pretty solid album. A lot of fuzzy, Sabbathy riffs, just good melodies, great fucking vocals. And I was kind of wondering how they would follow it up. And they followed it up pretty much exactly the way I thought they would, except they made it bigger, bolder, richer, riffier. This is a flat-out better album.
And while I can't speak to the first record, because, again, this isn't what I thought it was, I can speak to the fact that this is a very large, epically riffy, doomy, swampy, sludgy, stonery album. That I can speak to 100%.
The special edition of this album should come with like an Econoline van with a wizard spray painted on it. Either that or that's what the band actually travels in from show to show. Either way, I'm all for it. Right from the rip with the opening track, Phoenix 1, Ardent, which it's not listed on the CD, but I guess all of these tracks have like a surname, which some of them really work. Some of them make them sound a little bit more mystical. And some of them sound like direct-to-video like horror movies and shit, like Wolf 2, Celestial Beast. If that's the sequel to the Jack Nicholson movie, I'm curious about it now. Or Unicorn, Carnage and Ice. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to the mystical waterfall where you saw that creature the first time. Nope, they're gonna fucking stab you with the horn. But with this opening track, it's more of like a setup, and instantly it reminded me of like an old favorite. This band reminds me of The Sword. Like the first two Sword albums, even right from the rip, how this opens up with like an opening suite. It's not necessarily like an intro where like, oh yeah, we're just at soundscapes and blah, blah, blah. It's this cool short instrumental that introduces you to this absolutely lovely production here. It's rich, organic, it's full. The guitars have quite possibly the perfect tone for what they're doing. They're fuzzy. They're kind of crackly.
They got some grit to them. They got some crunch to them. The sword comparisons are pretty spot on. In fact, I'll be hard-pressed if you listen to this record and don't hear the sword. I'm going to be honest. Especially Age of Winters.
Oh, yeah.
Which we have playing in the background because we're both giant sluts for this album. But, I mean, it's got that sort of vibe to it. And it never really lets up from that. Even in its more somber, quiet moments. There are 4 actual interludes on here, and they do kind of let up from the overall grit and heft of this record. But, man, songs like, well, Wizard, Crystal Heart. That one, swampy, sludgy. It's got kind of like an old school, like 70s vibe to it.
Oh, big time. Like, a lot of this is in the vein of, like, more classic bands that, the Sword definitely listened to as well. St. Vitus, Trouble, Pentagram, Black fucking Sabbath, all of that. And it's all about the riffs. And when it's not about the riffs, it's about the riffs and harmonies and melodies, and that goes across the guitars, the synths, and Riley's awesome vocals. She has this haunting presence to all of her vocals. And I love her, like, vocal delivery. It's kind of Ozzy-ish. She's very on the riff, but there's a lot of these, like, big epic harmonies, and, like, her note choices are really solid because, you know, there's frequently moments where you feel like the song could take off and soar, because this is epic wizards and warrior shit. Soaring is kind of allowed, I guess. But most of the time she takes it back down and kind of just, like, makes it sound even more creepy and more ominous. And it has this, like, ghostly, haunting effect throughout this entire album, but it is catchier than hell.
A good example of that would be Unicorn, Carnage and Ice. Slow, doomy melodies, big crooning vocals. It's got this really cool off-time riffy swing to it. Like, the whole song just kind of has a swagger about it. And it's uber catchy. The riffs, the melodies, the harmonies in there, you can't help but kind of bob your head to it. There's a really cool crawling, descending riff in there too. Probably one of the more riffy songs on the album.
I mean, like, tons of riff changes. I love the drum performance in this entire album, too. Like, just lots and lots of these fat grooves, but, like, some fun nuance to them. Dragon, the Lord of the Sky, has this, like, fun swing to it where they kind of do, like, a little turnover in the middle of the rhythm. Reminded me a lot of COC's Born Again for the Last Time, which, if you own Wise Blood, you know how cool that fucking drum rhythm is. Yeah. There's also some, like, Alice in Chains, like, vocal harmonies on there that sound particularly haunting and gloomy. But across the board, like, drum work on here actually was kind of surprising. Like, it doesn't stay, like, you know, kind of in that, like, stoner doom pocket where it's generally just kind of, like, all about the groove. There's some, like, fun stuff in here where they kind of break into, like, some gallops. There's, you know, a lot of, like, really clever fills on here.
To be honest, the drum performance kind of reminds me of a mixture between COC, the Melvins, and High on Fire. A lot of big tom moments. There's a lot of, like, floor tom accents. There's a lot of tribal grooves. I mean, for the most part, it's fairly simplistic, but it's placed in really cool spots that need, like, a good build to them. And this band is all about great, hefty, like, epic building and, like, tension.
Yeah. This has, again, like, you know, the atmosphere and the vibe of, like, I don't know, Conan the Barbarian. Like, I kind of wanted to watch Conan the Barbarian after listening to this. Like, there are moments on here that I feel like we're meant to appease Thulsa Doom. James Earl Jones could pull off bangs like no one else in that fucking movie. The most ridiculous haircut ever for a villain, but guess what? You look at him and you're like, no, he's actually kind of scary with that haircut. But all this kind of has, like, that sort of, like, wizards and warriors and barbarians sort of vibe to it. The songs are, like, epic stories. I mean, that definitely flows along with the lyrics because they definitely stick to those themes. But in terms of, like, making them, like, bigger, like, they sound grand, they sound epic, but they don't sound, like, cheesy at all. They sound, like, really rooted on, like, the darker side of fantasy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, with these song titles and even the cover of the record, I was getting ready for some hardcore cheese, and you don't really get that. In fact, there's only a handful of times, one that I found directly in Wolf 2 Celestial Beast, where I thought the vocals were a little bit folky, but, like, beyond that, I didn't get any cheese coming out of this record.
There's definitely some, bard-ish moments on here, but they're like the dark bard. Like, I don't come to sing tales of happiness. I come to tell you about all the people I did travel with, but they all got murdered along the road. Their corpses are all the way back there. Don't worry, I already looted them. Yeah, but Wolf 2, Path of Moss, and Summoning Spell all kind of have that vibe. They're dark, they're haunting, but they're more acoustic, and there's a lot of, like, you know, cool atmosphere in here, whether it's, like, classic Moog synths that kind of harmonize the guitars. There's even lush strings and synths on Crystal Cave and Shrine. That is, you know, one of the biggest songs on the album just in terms of, like, these grand soaring melodies. Like, I feel like you're getting, like, sweeping shots of Middle Earth as, well, orcs burn it down. The strings work really well with the melodies. It's an excellent build. Riley's vocals in the beginning, like, you get this good isolated moment of, you know, again, like, the traveling weary bard only telling bad news to people. How's the Shire? Burned down. Orcs fucking ate everyone. Also, in other news, hobbits are kind of delicious. But you get these big, like, string swells, and it just, you can feel the atmosphere changing, and it gets bigger and bolder. It becomes like this giant epic where it's not necessarily dark, but it just has, like, this, again, like, huge quality that's just I don't know, like kind of majestic. But for me personally, I love it when this band is just flat out heavy, and like the big doomier tracks on here, and the heavier tracks really were the ones that I was just drawn to. Unicorn, Carnage and Ice, probably my favorite track on here. Sun Song, Behold the Flame, I think is also awesome. Might have one of the dirtiest riffs on there.
It's straight crowbar. I don't care what anybody says. It's straight crowbar, and dude, the harmonies are nasty in there. Everything in that song is just big and nasty, and I love it.
Dude, even the harmonies kind of lurch and kind of like reach out at you.
Yep.
Siren, The Pull of Promise. That one is another just absolutely riffy, fun song. I love the start of it where it kind of opens up with like those big arena rock drums where it's just, you know, snare, floor tom, like, all right, we will rock you, kind of. You know, it has that vibe. You get isolated, like, kind of like drum and bass stuff with her vocals. It's a good build-up, and then when the riff comes in, it just fucking slaps you silly. But one of the coolest parts of that is the outro to it, because all of a sudden everything drops out, and it gets into this, like, heavy metal, almost kind of thrash metal, chuggy riff. Ripping lead on top of there, which the leads on here, I think, are just absolutely killer. Like, again, very much in the vein of, like, you know, Sabbath, like a lot of Tony Iommi stuff, but it absolutely fits. The harmonies, once again, on point. Kind of the same thing with Wizard Crystal Heart, where, like, at the end you get this, like, fun, like, I don't know, it's kind of like Iron Maiden, but it's got, like, a bit of a, like a boogie to it.
It's just like Maiden, except it's got a swagger to it. You just feel all kind of loosey-goosey and like, hey now.
As far as any negatives on here, I will say that towards the end, the interludes started to feel a little intrusive, and they started to happen, like, in between all the actual tracks. And, you know, while I thought they were well executed, like, they didn't seem stock. They were musical. Mm-hmm. You know, you still got, like, good melodies. You also got, like, some really good isolated points of, you know, Riley singing, which she has an excellent voice. It's just, I felt like, all right, we have about 6 to 7 minutes interludes here. Why couldn't we have, like, a 7-minute, like, riffy banger instead?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, like, contextually with the themes of this album, you know, they probably fit in at some point. I just could have done with less of them.
Yeah, I don't really have anything outside of that. You know, the first intro I thought was cool because it really sets up the record. Like, the opening track, Phoenix One Ardent, like, it really sets up the record, and you kind of get a feel of what's going on. But then it happens 3 more times, and well, they're, you know, definitely musical, and it's not just like random, you know, bullshit or synths or noise or whatever.
Conan samples. That would have been kind of funny.
That would have been cool. I was just like, Like, and the problem is, like you said, when they come later in the record, they come sandwiched in between really good tracks. And so I'm wondering why we need to break it up any. And I'm sure, again, contextually, I'm sure there's actually a storyline here. I'm sure if I were actually to, like, get into it and read the lyrics, like, oh, I'd be like, all right, that makes sense and whatnot. But we're not seeing it live. We're listening to it. So, like, when you don't know the context openly, and when you don't, you know, you haven't been following along to the story and whatnot, it does get to be a little much, and that's probably really the only thing I can knock it on. Overall, though, I'm going to give this a good, solid, strong 4 stars. They do a really, really good job, especially taking this sound and not making it cheese. Like, I was expecting straight cheese whiz, and I didn't get it. Instead, I got a collection of really hefty, awesome riffs that remind me of a whole ton of music that I've been listening to for a very long time. The songs are paced really well. They transition fairly well. The lead work is great. The overall tone and production of this record, I don't think they could have got more perfect for the vibe that they were going for. The vocals definitely stand out in many a track. Like, Riley can croon, and she can sing, and they're not like your typical vocals. For the most part, a lot of them are fairly, like, elongated notes that almost seem chanted, which make them a little bit more, like, haunting as far as things go, especially in Summoning Spell. Well, I can complain about that because it's an interlude. Like, at the same time, that track is particularly haunting. There's a bunch of vocal harmonies. It just feels kind of unsettling, and that's cool. So, like, the overall vibe of this record is dark and kind of melancholic, but at the same time swampy and sludgy, and the riffs are great. Overall, I just had a really good time. If you're a big fan of bands like The Sword, 100%, St. Vitus, Spirit Caravan, definitely Black Sabbath, definitely High on Fire, you're probably really going to dig this. I'd recommend giving this a spin.
Yeah, I am also at a 4. I love riffs. I love riffs. Oh my god, this has so many catchy riffs. And if the first thing your band reminds me of is the sword, then there's a good chance I love it and I will buy your album. Yeah, everything on here for the most part just works. Like the songs are well paced, they're really well crafted. Like great riff changes, they're very fluid. Riley's vocals, again, like I said, they're haunting, they're alluring, they're kind of ghostly at times. And that keeps us, like from sounding too cheesy. Like there's a good air of darkness to this. And it's balanced out by these like catchy riff harmonies and melodies. When they're big and doomy, they just sound monolithic at times. Mm-hmm. The production here, again, couldn't be more perfect. I love the sound of the drums. Those guitars have a great tone. Yeah, this is kind of a layup win for me. I love this kind of shit. And again, like my only complaint was, towards the end, I do feel like it got a little too in love with the transitional tracks. But at the same time, they weren't bad. Mm-mm. They didn't sound stock. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, we looped a bunch of fucking Conan samples in there. Which, I mean, I would have been all right provided it was like a looped sample of Conan punching that camel in the face, because that seems funny. Yeah, if you're a big fan of the sword, like that's the first one right there. But also, High on Fire, Saint Vitus, Pentagram, a little bit of Trouble here and there. Just good stoner doom, and definitely some Black Sabbath in there. Check this album out. Check out the first one too. I think this is an even better album than the first one, but I think they're both good, and this band is off to a really awesome start. Yeah. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will do probably sometime next month. But memberships are the main way to support the channel, and there's a join button down there for you to strike mightily with your rat-slaying sword. I don't know what she calls her sword. She's the Rat Queen, so I'm just going with rats. So, yeah, just, hit the join button.
And even if you don't hit the button, well, rats. No, just kidding. You don't have to hit the button. It's cool if you do, but we do tons of stuff that is non-member related. We do non-members only live streams. We just did one the other night. Got to hang out with a bunch of our friends. That was super cool. We always enjoy talking to you guys. That's kind of really something special that we do here. Beyond that, we have discography rankings, we have tons of album reviews, we have Nick's collection updates, multiple discussion forums and segments, and all metal all the time. We do that all for you guys because, well, we're thankful for you. We couldn't do this without you. We just passed 22,000 subscribers, which is nuts. Thank you guys for making this happen. Thank you guys for, again, being a part of things. We appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.